looking to any questions or comments, and if not, a mover and seconder on the adoption of the minutes of June 5th.
I'll move.
Moved by Audrey. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Carrie. Thank you for that. Is there any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, our next item on the agenda is from our Public Works Department, which is our waste disposal agreement extension. We have our Director of Public Works on the line. Good morning, Michael.
Sago, good morning.
I'll pass the floor over to yourself, Mike, just for again a high-level overview to this recommendation.
Okay, yeah. Sago, everyone. Good morning. I hope everyone's had a good weekend and ready for a good week. My name is Michael Montour. I'm Director of Public Works for Six Nations of the Grand. Closed our landfill site. We built a transfer station in July of 2020. In an effort to, as part of building that and transitioning to that, we had to get contracts in place with a waste hauler and waste receiver. So the waste hauler job is basically to take the bins and take them to a certain site when they're full. And the waste receiver's job is to essentially landfill our waste as per provincial legislation. Our current hauler is Norfolk Disposal, and our current waste receiver is Walker. So our waste goes, Norfolk takes our waste up to Thorold, which is almost to Niagara Falls. And that's the structure in which we operate. Things have gone well. Their contracts is expiring, both of them in July this year. They have built-in extensions. One has a 5-year and one has a 2-year. So we're just looking to experiences with both of them. The last 3 years have been fantastic, and thank you to the community for really transitioning to the waste and making sure things are put where they need to be. And we've really seen a lot of great progress there. And if anyone's ever curious, we see about 6,500 tons of waste come through our transfer station to Walker's site in Thorold a year. So that's the I guess the crux of this recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, Nyala, for that, Michael, for that overview. Is there any questions or comments in relation to the recommendation? It's on the agenda. It's just an extension of the waste disposal. Further question or comment, Audrey?
Yeah, I'm just checking, Mike. Is it all of our members who live on the reserve using the waste disposal site, or are there other people using it as well? And is it monitored closely?
So we do have a scale house. The attendance there, the majority of the time. There are some times when he's got to leave to do some construction debris inspections. So I know council put the construction debris approval process in place to mitigate the risk of people utilizing or doing projects off reserve and using our landfill site to dispose of the waste. So that's a mechanism we have in place to curb that. But for the most part, he's involved. And we also have a system in place with Norfolk where any of the bins that are on reserve, the people pay a certain fee for the bin, and then the tipping fees are covered through this contract. So it works well. And I guess another tidbit of information that I forgot to mention is that Indigenous Services Canada covers the cost of both of these contracts at 100%. Yeah.
You know, that's wonderful.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Mike. I see Kerry has his hand raised.
Mike, is that waste tobacco still being dropped off there in one of the bins, or do you have a separate bin for it, or what's the story there?
Yeah, so we have our residential and recycling area, and then where the old recycling hill used to be before we transitioned, that's now like a construction debris site, and that's where the waste tobacco is dropped off. The the actual waste receiver likes to use that as cover. So we've had pretty good experiences, and they're always discussing different ideas as to what we can do, how we can collect better. So they've been really good to work with, but there's been no issues on what's been deposited. And yes, we've been collecting the waste tobacco now ever since we've started, and we have no issues.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that, Kerry. Next in queue, I have Michelle.
I'll move.
Okay, thanks for that, Michelle. It's been moved, seconded by Audrey. Further questions or comments to the motion? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any hands raised. I'll then look to all in favor. Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading.
I'll move.
Moved by Michelle, seconded by Audrey. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, I believe that completes your item, correct, Mike?
That's correct. Now, everybody have a great day.
Already now, Mike, have a great day as well. Okay, council, we're going to continue moving along our agenda here. Our next item is in relation to housing, which is the Harold Road Elders Complex. I'm going to pass this item over to Lillian, who will be speaking on this item. Good morning, Lillian.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm bringing this item back to general finance as some changes that occurred since it was approved in December of last year. So the contract is with K.L. Martin. The original design was for a 20-unit elders complex on Harold Road. We engaged with fellow department health services originally. The plan was to offer a semi-assisted facility, which we currently don't have. We know that we have people who don't need, a full level of care in the lodge that are taking up beds. And we have people at J Silver Heels as well, which is supposed to be, to my understanding, for people who have chronic or traumatic brain injuries that also don't belong there just because we have gaps in our care. So I engaged with them originally for a semi-assisted facility. During the course of that, we engaged with social services as well, and identified a need for facilities for elders who are caring for small children to keep them out of care, third-party care. So we engaged with them during this process and ended up doing a redesign of the original 20-unit elders complex, which has now become a 52-unit elders complex. With mixed living arrangements. So half the facility would be for elders who require semi-assisted care. And then the social wing of the complex would be for elders who are caring for small children. The change in the size of the facility, which more than doubled in square footage, has caused an increase in the contract fees for the design by $145,000. So the total contract amount increased to $548,845. That being said, housing does have the funds from Indigenous Services Canada in the amount of $651,000 to cover the design and contract administration and tendering process for this. So housing is looking to encompass the full cost of the design increase. And social will be providing a kind of in-kind contribution to the actual construction of the building.
Nyala for that, Lillian. That's it's good news. I know one of the pieces as well which we're working on. I think this was brought up from Councillor Helen in relation to housing in its entirety and looking at all of our new builds that are forthcoming and plans to be able to share with community on housing in general, as we've heard multiple times from our community that's one of the priorities that they'd like to see more. So that's it's good news that this is happening. I'm going to open the floor up for further questions or comments for Lillian. First, beginning with Kiri.
Yes, Lillian, do you have a ballpark figure of what the cost would be now for construction?
For the entirety of the facility, including the second phases, would be approximately 14 million.
Okay, thanks.
It's Melba.
Okay, thanks for that. Kiri, over to you, Melba.
Yes. The question is, Lillian, with future tenants, will they fit in with the present list that you have through housing? And the next question is, will those that are housed in hotels be priority to get a unit at this new facility?
So Melba, the way that we looked to kind of find the candidates for this building, particularly with the semi-assisted facility, is to kind of take full round of information of the current tenants that we have living in our independent elders facilities, identifying those who have care needs and hoping to transition them into the semi-assisted facility. That being said, there are people we're aware of that aren't currently tenants that are in the lodge. So they're tenants of or clients of health services that don't necessarily need to be there. So this kind of process is going to look a little bit different than our traditional wait lists, and it's going to be used primarily through health level of identifying who their clients are, because there's different care needs there. So it's a little bit more complex. That being said, people who are not living currently in our facilities, who are living, say, in hotels, they would be eligible as long as they require a level of care. If they do not, that would be an emergency housing type situation, which we don't currently have programming for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Melba. I have Helen next in the chambers.
Yeah, does it echoing? Does it sound echoing?
No, it's good.
I'm questioning all the different housings that we're putting on Harold Road. So I'm wondering, what are we creating down there? We've got regular housing there. We have those tiny houses. We have social housing on that one building, Arms is building. We have Habitat for Humanity. And now we're putting an elders complex there. So my concern is, I guess with all these different housings, kind of like letting training on the ghetto type thing. And I wonder why we're squishing everything in Harold Lane. We got all that land behind over here on that Sunrise Court Road or whatever that road's called. We got all that land right in back there that we bought from that lady. Why are we not putting anything there? There's tons of acres there. Why are we squishing everything into Harold Road? That's my concern.
Okay, thanks, Helen, for your concern. I'll look to, and I think Darren's on the line as well, because we do have the overall planning to what we've been trying to accomplish of land planning. I know Audrey's also talked about this over the years. I see Lillian as well, and maybe if Darren, if you'd like to add in as well, I'll first go over to Lillian.
So I just want to comment kind of on what Helen has said here. I completely understand the concerns with kind of mixed residential space. However, that is what was noted in the community plan, is that we're not looking to create these kind of ghetto type situations where you've got people with mental health issues in one area, where you've got elders isolated to another area. And I think that's what we wanted to avoid, and why we didn't plan, because there was conversation about moving this facility back kind of behind Sunrise Court. And we were worried that we would be creating an area that's only elders. And we know that there's a lot of mental health issues that elders face, given that they're usually isolated, and they don't get a lot of interaction with other age groups and with families unless their families visit them. So that's why we were actually looking to do a mixed type facility, which is what the community plan called for, so that elders have that opportunity to engage with children, because we know it's good for their mental health. We know it's good for their health and well-being overall. So I think it's kind of counterintuitive to say that by mixing a bunch of different types of groups of people together, that it's actually detrimental. And I know that what Darren's done is a lot of work to realign with the community plan. There's a lot of really great information there. And that's what we're trying to do with this facility, is to offer that mixed living space, which goes back to our traditions and our roots of living in longhouses, and you have all different age groups there, providing and helping one another. So thank you.
Thanks for that, Lillian. Just wanted to check in with Darren as well. Good morning, Darren.
Morning, everybody. Yeah, Lily did a great job on answering that question. I think there's other considerations, cost considerations also. There's a lot of infrastructure that's put in through Herald Road, as well as a secondary access, which is planned just south of the village there. So that's going to provide access through, so that any kind of concerns with congestion, etc., will be addressed through that. We're also looking to open up the lots in the southern portion of that Herald Road area and make them available to community members for families. So again, it's a very much a community approach to developing that space. And it's not to say we won't develop the other space behind Sunrise Court. All that land is significant property there. Some of it's a bit low lying, but it's still available for future growth. So we're trying to be responsive to the needs, like you said, Chief, the high level of housing need in the community. And this is great. This is a great project to see how it's addressing the needs that were identified in our housing needs assessment that was done last year, and as well as a survey that was done. So this is really a great project as far as I'm concerned. And we have other spaces that we're planning to build more apartments on as well in the village. So there's lots coming, but this is a great start.
Okay, I see. Thanks for that, Darren. And again, these plans have all been in the making. And again, I think it still needs to get in front. I know I just heard comments. It still needs to get in front of the overall plans of what Darren's talking about to full council, so that we can be able to answer any questions that community may have in the different areas. Sherilyn.
Thank you, Chief.
One second.
Yep. Thank you, Chief. That was my. Is that so? Okay, now I can. Okay. That was my question, is for full council to have that vision also of what's happening. And you're right, Chief, for us to be able to communicate what is happening. So before it even comes here, it would be nice to know the plan. So I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil, for that as well. Sherilyn, looking to any further questions or comments, Audrey?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Sherilyn's saying, but it has to be with everything. When things are in the startup phase, council should be aware of it. We shouldn't be hearing when it's all said and done. And that's what seems to be happening. So we're setting up a very, very poor precedent for the next council coming in if we continue down this path. So that open transparency should be starting with council, so that they're all included, they know what's going on, the information is available.
Thanks for that, Audrey. And again, this is the first of the project. It's the design. So council is in the loop of this specific project, but you're talking in terms of the entirety, is my understanding, for the full.
Yes, in general.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Are there any further questions or comments?
It's Melba. I certainly agree with Sherilyn and Audrey concerning, our minds coming together. Totally. As you know, council gets a lot of times the first information or questions as the needs of the community. So we should be involved. We shouldn't have information coming like we are today. It's good, but it should be before everything's in place. And my further question is, when it was mentioned semi-assistance, and I did talk to Darren about this very briefly some months ago concerning 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom. I really do believe that all the units should have 2 bedrooms, especially when it comes to elders and a lot of time mental illness. Mental illness is many times forever with the people who are suffering from that. So my question is family members going to be allowed to live with the elders?
Thanks for
According
that.
to their needs.
Melba,
According to their needs.
I'll look to Lillian for any shed any light on that question.
Yeah, thank you, Melba. It's currently in our policy that we have a caregiver policy where family members are allowed to stay with someone who's been diagnosed with a chronic and ailing condition. These facilities, what I mean by semi-assisted is that you have a nurse on site 24/7 that's there to aid anyone should they need it, if they need help taking medication and things like that. There's also in the design that I provided some rooms for doctors to visit patients on site. We know we have issues at Sunrise Court with elders in the winter needing to go off site to attend care appointments at White Pines and things like that. Sometimes they have difficulty getting over there. So there would be an opportunity for those doctors to come in and visit their patients directly on site. That's all we mean by semi-assisted, is that they're going to be cared for, then they're going to feel cared for there with appropriate medical staff. Not to the level of Iroquois Lodge, of course, but that there is someone there who can help them. These are people who can live primarily independently, but who may have mobility conditions, they may be on oxygen and things like that. But to your point, Melba, yes, there is a caregiver policy in place right now where people not even just in 2-bedroom units, but also in 1-bedroom units are allowed to have a designated family member give care and provide care for them. That's a simple form that's filled out, that's provided to housing, just so that we can identify, I'm so sorry, my dog is chewing on his chew toy, is able to stay there with them, and that we can identify people who are living in units they should not be and people who are living there to provide care for an elder who needs it. So that will carry over, and these units are primarily 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom elders units, as is seen on the drawings I provided.
Thank you. Just a further question also concerning White Pines and doctors. Not all the elders, of course, will have doctors that are part of White Pines. Is there plans of how they will assist other elders who have doctors in Caledonia, Hagers, Brantford?
So those are conversations that are taking place with health services. Health services was engaged in order to provide information on how to provide that care, if they were able to provide nursing staff and things like that. And Elena Hill was engaged primarily. And then Janet Gasparelli at Health Services was engaged as portfolio lead. As we know, with the transition with Elena going on leave, Lori Davis Hill being permanently resigning from the position, we'll obviously need to engage with the new acting director of health, but we're looking to do that to kind of clarify some of those points for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Lillian and Melba. I'll look at this point to Sherry Lynn.
Yeah, that was my question. That was my question, kind of what Melba said regarding the health staff, especially the elder advocate, to make sure that they know was the elder advocate in there also? Lillian?
No, those conversations first took place with Alana, and then Janet was advised, I believe, by Alana to step in and take over those discussions. But as we're going through the design phase, unless we're not really at implementation, those conversations kind of cooled off. But I will be re-engaging, I believe, with Jesse in order to carry on those conversations.
Okay, I hope that everybody with their expertise are going to be in the planning, and especially this elder advocate to know what's happening to be able to help and advocate for these elders. So everybody to be on board. Thank you.
It's Melba again. Yeah,
I think
Sherilyn is right, because as we all know that as elders, we certainly are subjected to health problems, including requiring palliative care. So we need that all fitting together, and hopefully they're at these meetings and playing a big part as the experts they are, which we have, and hopefully they're going to stay in place. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks for that, Sherilyn and Melba. Are there any further questions or comments? Actually, I did see Michelle have her hand raised, and then over to Audrey. Michelle, you have the floor.
I was gonna move the motion, and I was just gonna say it's really nice to hear that the diversity is there, and I'm sure and I'm very hopeful that the coordination between all the parties will happen in the design phase.
Exactly. Thanks for that, Michelle. Audrey?
Yeah, my question is, did you survey the people who are already living in residence to see what could be changed and improved, and use those improvements in the new 52 wing that's being designed, such as storage space, such as counters maybe a little bit lower, that sort of stuff? What kind of shower head they have, or do they need one that's for somebody with physical disabilities type of thing, and minor disabilities, that sort of stuff? So that's my question. Thank you.
So, I mean, most of this kind of initial planning for the building was done before I took over. We did do a lot of reevaluation using both the housing needs assessment, that being community members who both live in our units but also don't live in our units, but also just things that we come across on a daily basis at housing. I did really engage a lot with our new property manager, who attends monthly meetings at Sunrise Court and takes note of all the concerns that are raised by tenants there. All the complaints that we get from our other seniors facilities in terms of things like countertop height, and we just redesigned the log cabins to have accessible showers because they were designated elders units but didn't have accessible showers. So things like that, and identifying the needs as they come in. And with our new maintenance software, we're doing a really good job at kind of recording what those needs are to help us develop better facilities in the future.
Thank you. It's wonderful to hear.
Okay, thank you, Niela, for that, Lillian. Sorry, so I'm going to go back to, I believe it was Michelle who was moving the motion on our agendas. So I'll look at this point to a seconder.
I'll second it, Melba.
Seconded by Melba. Are there any further questions or comments to the motion? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any, so I'll look to all in favor. Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading.
I'll move.
Moved by Michelle. Seconder.
Second, Melba.
Seconded by Melba to waive second reading on the previous motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, I think that does also complete your item, Lillian. So have a great day, and Yama for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, council, we're continuing moving on our agendas. The next item, or two items rather, is from our health services department. I believe we have Jesse on the line as well. This first one is in relation to the malpractice insurance, and then going into Jordan's principal application. So good morning, I'll pass the floor over to you, Jesse.
Morning, everybody. I'm not sure why my camera is not, oh, there we go. I had it slid over. The first agenda item is a request to pay the malpractice insurance for the maternal and child center. So the funding has been received for this insurance through the Indigenous Healing and Wellness Strategy. And this is a request to purchase that insurance at $152,338.50. And we are paying the Association of Ontario Midwives, who then deals with healthcare insurance typical of Canada for that insurance. Are there any questions around that item?
For that, Jesse. So again, the recommendation is on your agendas. Looking to any questions or comments. Greg.
Yeah, hi, Jesse. Just one question. You had, it's a total of 5 midwives, is that correct?
Yes.
And then and what's the total coverage?
The total coverage is, hang on, I think it is, I have to go into the BN to see what the total is, but it's significant in the millions.
Or about 2 million or
Yeah, it's about that, but I don't know the exact figure. I'd have to pull it up. Let me know if you have any other questions while I'm searching through my.
Yeah, no problem. She's bringing up the figure.
Yeah.
Further question or comment, Helen? What you gotta hit your other button, Helen. There it is. Oh, now you just shut it off.
No, let it be read.
There you go.
Yeah, let it be read. Let it be read.
What did she say the total cost was? Cause shouldn't that be in here?
150.
It's in the motion.
I thought,
152,338.50 cents.
is that for each of the 5 or that for the 5? The question though, what was the total cost?
Yeah, that's
The total cost, yeah.
Yes, he asked what the total coverage was of the midwives. This is the total cost for all 5.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just looking for the coverage.
Okay,
Paper copies.
thanks for that. Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, no problem. And Jesse, maybe if you can just send a quick email over to.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat as soon as I find it.
Sure, that works. Looking to see if there's any further question or comment to the motion, and if not, looking to a mover and seconder on the motion. Moved by Sherry Lynn, second by Greg. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive a second reading. Moved by Sherry Lynn, seconded by Greg to waive second reading on the previous motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, Jesse, back over to you for the next item on Jordan's principal.
Yeah, I actually have Amber, who's the lead navigator, on the line to give a bit of background around the group application for summer respite supports. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber.
Perfect. Thank you now for that. Good morning, Amber.
Good morning, Scano. So the Jordan's principal team within the Child Youth Health team has completed a group application for children within and surrounding the community to access respite services throughout the summer months. The group application includes children with complex medical needs and with an addition of array medical diagnosis, or children who are awaiting assessment from a medical professional. The group application includes 46 children and totals $300,083,250 to be submitted to Indigenous Services Canada. So the request is just to submit the group summer respite application to Indigenous Services Canada.
Just to clarify, I know we did see a previous motion come through. I think that was for the total, Jesse. So this is an addition, correct, Jesse? Because I know there was conversation on, I think it was from Michelle at one point, just in terms of looking at a bigger picture lens when applying to Jordan's principle. Is this an addition on top of that original?
Yeah, so this is specifically an additional group application to support the kids over the summer. So yeah, that's in addition to us looking at that overarching the needs through Jordan's principle. So this is sort of an interim because we do have kids that are going into the summer that will need continued respite support. So this is just making sure that we put that in place before the summer comes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Jesse. Are there any further questions or comments for either Jesse or Amber? Michelle, and then over to Audrey. Michelle, you have the floor.
Okay, so this is for the summer months. We are like, you're speaking July and August, so will the turnaround for approval even happen within those short, like, you'll need an approval very soon, right?
Yes, we will need an approval pretty soon, but when we submit the application, we can submit it as time sensitive, which requires them to look at the application a little bit sooner than like a non-time sensitive application. So the hope is that with it being deemed time sensitive, they will prioritize the group application.
And I would hope we do that for everybody, to be fair, because I know people are waiting months and months, and for us to do that, I think is quite unfair. That's my comments.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that, Michelle. Audrey? Oh, sorry, Audrey, you're on mute.
You expected that, didn't you, Mark? Yeah, I'll move on this motion, but with the question, I guess, or a statement. So are you going to make sure that this is done ahead of time for next year, so that when, like, we're in the summer right now, so that everything can be set up for our especially our vulnerable children in need and the parents and caregivers who take care of them? So if we could expedite that next year or put it in the big group package, and is there a buffer added on there in case there are people who just come onto the list and get told there's no respite for their caregivers? Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Niala, for that as well. Audrey, I'm sorry, Amber, did you want to reply?
Yeah, so there definitely is a buffer, and there always will be when we're submitting group applications. So what it would look like is if a child or family comes forward after we submit this application, there's always the ability to submit an individual request, which would also go in as time sensitive due to, you know, the time constraints that we have. And that's with any group application. We have the ability to do that.
Okay, thanks for that, Amber. So it was moved by Audrey on the Jordan's principle application. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it. It's Melba. Yeah.
Second.
I also wanted to ask, was there ever, I guess, a presentation to community members concerning Jordan's principle, where they would totally understand how this works and under what conditions children would be eligible, and parents and other caregivers and grandparents? to be eligible to take advantage of Jordan's principle?
Thanks, Melba. There has been a number of presentations and we've done a number of like outreach. We try to get out there as much as we can, which is why we've seen the applications more than double over the last couple of years. But I agree, like, I think we need to continue to do those things. I know that the team, we're trying to recruit and build out this team even more to be able to support the number of applications that we are processing right now. But I agree. I think we can do, we can continue to focus on that outreach and continue to have those presentations. We've done it, within all the different organizations within the community too. And we do hold obviously community awareness and info sessions. But I agree, maybe we can look at having some more focused presentations to the community as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Jesse. And just want to confirm, is there a further follow-up question, Michelle, on your end, or is your hand still up from the last? Okay, I'm not seeing her come offline, so I'm hoping it's the old hand from her last question. Further questions or comments? Again, it's been moved and seconded. Sorry, sure, Helen.
So this respite support group, are they independent of health service or big part of health service?
I think the question was if the respite workers were a part of health services or independent. So the family does have the ability to choose their own respite workers. So we're not employing the respite workers. The family can choose who provides respite for their child.
So I guess my question, what I'm trying to get at is, and I almost hate to say it, is this fall through funding? Or fall through council funds? I've never heard of this group, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
So in the past, just to give some context, in the past, these respite applications were individual applications that each family would have to put into Jordan's Principle to request that support. And so what Amber and the team has done this year is to go through a group application. So work with all of the families that require these services and supports to put in one application. We have found that it's quicker to go through a group application process at times. That could be changing, but that has been, and we've also, Jordan's Principle, like on ISK's side, they have really tried to push when we have a group of people that are requiring the same supports to try to put that through a group application. So that's why we went through the group application route to get these families approved.
I guess it's not an actual per se like group or like organization in a sense, Helen. It's more number of families in one. Right. Okay, thanks for that, Jesse. Are there any further questions or comments? I think just to reiterate Michelle's comments as well, I know we'll have to get a little bit more in terms of the timeliness, I think, of these applications. I know, Jesse, we're going back and forth on the entirety in the bigger picture of Jordan's Principle, so just to keep that noted. Okay, do appreciate the work as always. I'll go to the vote. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion, again, given the time sensitivity, motion to waive second reading. Moved by Audrey, seconder.
Second.
Seconded by Melba to waive second reading on the previous motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, I think that does complete the items for health services. So Nyawa, Amber, and Jesse, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Okay, council, continuing moving along here. This has been a follow-up. I know this is, we've had conversations on supports and how to best support. I had the opportunity while at the Chiefs of Ontario in Thunder Bay, catch up with employees or staff of NAG. We do have one of those staff and community members, Danielle Johnson, who's joining us on the line this morning. We did have an opportunity because, again, we've been trying to go back and forth to say how many athletes do we have? What is the best support that we can give the athletes and as a collective, as opposed, because we know if once we help one, we got to help all. And so that's something where Danielle and I had a conversation on what is the best support that council can give to all of our athletes heading to the North American Indigenous Games. So with that being said, good morning and welcome Danielle. Danielle, maybe if you can just give a little high level overview to just the games in general, as well as where we're at with the number. I think you were still doing a little bit of due diligence on the total number of athletes from specifically from our community. So with that being said, I'll pass the floor over to yourself. Good morning, Danielle.
Good morning. Thanks, Council, for having me. So I work for Indigenous Sport and Wellness Ontario. We are the governing sports body for Team Ontario for the NAHC and for the NAG Games. We right now currently have over 500 athletes that are going to be going to NAG from across Ontario. I don't know exactly the number for Six Nations just yet. We're in the process of getting that collected, and that's not part of, we're just waiting for the team to get that together. So we do have quite a few number of athletes going. We have a number of different sports that they're going to be participating in: lacrosse, softball, golf, kayaking, and canoeing. There's just all of them. Six Nations is representing in a lot of them. It's probably lacrosse. Just to give you an overview, is each athlete is required to pay $300. That is their total registration. That includes their flight, their accommodations, their meals. The only thing it does not cover is if they need spending money or their trip from home to the airport and then return. So the $300 includes all their apparel, all their sportswear that they'll be required and needing while they're there. Yeah, so that's what we have for our NAG athletes right now. We're going to be leaving July the 12th, I believe, and or 13th, and then returning on the 23rd. The opening ceremonies is on the Sunday, the closing ceremony is on the 23rd, and then throughout that time, once their competition is done, they're able to go in and watch another team participate in NAG.
Thanks, Nyawa, for that, Danielle. So again, I think just to the overview of the $300, which to me is pretty affordable for all of that. And I think that's something where the conversation we're trying to have is maybe we best support when athletes come back. Or do we maybe look at a celebration of some sort? Because we know that there's a number of athletes, in the totals. So I'm wondering, maybe Danielle, if you have discussion points around that.
I think just as a community member, I think it's nice to celebrate all of our athletes, all of our accomplishments. I know that right now I'm in a process of working with some other organizations, creating a youth conference or a gala similar to what the Dreamcatcher Fund holds, but making it more specific around youth. But just as a community member, I think it would be a great opportunity to showcase our athletes and to celebrate them. But yeah, the cost that we have right now is $300 per athlete. That might be pricey if you have, more than one athlete in your family. But again, it does include everything except their spending money. It includes their accommodations from when they get there to when they come home, their apparel, and then there's specific apparels as well. So if they're on the golf team, they'll get like a golf towel. If they're on the swim team, they'll get, the cap. The basketball, they all have their athletic wear. So it's pretty affordable, again, but it is $300. One of the things I did suggest is if Six Nations could provide transportation for the athletes from the reserve to the airport and then return, that might be where families could use the help. Yeah, I see there's a couple hands up, so I think Michelle.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's where we wanted, because I know we're just having some discussion with the chambers as well. There's been the gaming wants to assist as well, but they were looking for the total number of athletes. The other point is the donation committee. I think they've been seeing applications from members to get assistance that route as well. So I guess the goal behind this is to collaborate as best as we can to be able to support everyone. So that's kind of how we held off in the beginning, because we got one application and we knew once one comes in, there's probably 10 more and then some. So we wanted to have a more wholesome discussion. So do appreciate this. Michelle, over to Greg.
So I'm in full support of funding all our athletes. I know right now we don't have a number of how many potentially are going, and maybe that's something our admin team can put out. But I think we should always be celebrating. So supporting them on their way, and maybe this is a collaborative, and then celebrate when they return. I think that's it, but I think we could also provide that transportation as well. Chief, I have to sign off. But yeah, I'm fully in support of helping our athletes, and maybe like Ganawagi did, their child and family team supported their athletes. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Michelle. And again, do wish the family, supporting the family. I know Michelle's on her way to court. So do appreciate you representing council. Michelle. Greg.
Yeah, hi, Danielle. I agree too. I think they should be supported. And however, I don't know if it would be just a block support or block funding, or if you had a number even of previous years. If you had a number that would give an estimate of previous years would even be helpful, I think, to make a determination of the total amount of support that they required. But yeah, I'm in full support, and I know families like to go, and often they need support as well. So even a rough estimate would be helpful. And thank you.
Yeah, and I can get that as soon as we have that available. I can send it over to Tammy.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. And we'll work with our finance team here as well to bring back final numbers for council, because I know, Danielle, you also mentioned the transportation. Maybe that's an opportunity where we can maybe do something at the village, everybody being at the village or arena, and shift to the airport. I'm not sure what that looks like. So maybe, Danielle, that's something that we could even further talk off the line and build into the overall cost when that comes back. Helen, over to Audrey.
I guess my question, we're not making a decision today.
No, we're not.
Yeah, because I think we need to get everybody together to find out who's funding who. Because you know what? We want the family, for example, all going to all the different funding sources and all get money from the same place.
That's right.
It has to be coordinated. Who's going to fund what? How many? We don't know how many yet.
Definitely.
We need to look at the overall picture.
Definitely. And that's part of what we're exploring right now, is to get those hard numbers and then bring that back, and as well as looking at all the collaborators. Audrey.
Yeah, mine was along the same way. Thank you for that, Helen and Greg. I totally support our athletes, and I think they deserve to be supported as much as we can. And that's the way we get people who represent Six Nations also as they go along and they become adults, and because we helped them along the way. So yeah.
I do appreciate everyone's comments, and I know we all know we're a big sport community, so as much support, I know that's not in question. I think the full council definitely wants to support as best as we can. It's just a matter of collaborating and making sure that it's to Helen's point, you know, that we're doing this as the bigger picture of support.
I just also wanted to fill in as well that because NAIG wasn't being able to be held over COVID and it had to be canceled, it didn't change the age requirements at NAIG. So some of the athletes have missed out on participating in NAIG due to COVID. So we do have a Masters Indigenous Games, which is 19 and older. So any one of you can also come and participate. I encourage you all to come. It's going to be in Ottawa. So you may, if you have questions from, you know, young athletes or the department you're in, just to let them know that there is the Masters Indigenous Games. They don't have to qualify. They just have to submit. There's a lacrosse team they can put in. There's golf. There's just a number of athletes, and they can find that online at mastersindigenousgames.com.
That's perfect. Thanks, Dan. We're just making a little bit of jokes in here. Is biking a category? Because I know Councillor Greg.
Well, there's actually one where you can run and then bike. So I don't think it's a pass the baton though.
We were all there's a few of us that joined in the Tom Humboldt run, and I'm still recovering myself.
Well, I think it would be great for Six Nations Council to submit a team, maybe the badminton, to Masters Indigenous Games, and I hope to see all of you there participating.
Well, now is so much, Danielle. I know I did have the opportunity to speak with to Mark as well. I think because as we know, AFN will be happening the days leading up to NAIG. I think I'm expected to be involved at the games as well. So definitely do appreciate the invitation, and as well as the presentation this morning. So we'll work with you, Danielle, to further bring back a plan of action and to see where we could get this best support to all of our athletes.
Yep, and as soon as I have that information ready, I'll pass it over to Tammy.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Danielle. Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay, council, that does complete. Oh. Sorry. Oh, right. Sorry, the other one is you'll see the U17 hockey championships. Sorry, Tam, can you just?
Yeah, so council had asked us to reach out to the coaches of that team to find out what it would cost for them to get rings and bonus jackets for their championship team. And so I did reach out to the coach, Dwayne Dockstader, and he submitted 2 separate quotes. One was for 18 rings and one was for 22 jackets. And so the total cost for both of those is $7,893. And I did ask him, because I know council had asked whether they were going to be fundraising or contributing to any portion of that. He said no, they weren't doing any fundraising, and it's repaired the total cost if they were going to proceed.
Okay, thanks for that, Tammy. So this was again follow-up. I believe Councillor Michelle had brought this forward to again the U17 hockey champions. So this is again looking to, I think that's the further due diligence left on this, correct? So the total amount is
$7,893.
Okay, so that's again what we've come up with, looking to council on any contributions that council would like to give to this, or looking to discussion at this point on how to best move forward on follow-up on the U17 business. So opening the floor for questions or comments. Just gotta turn your mic on.
And that's for the rings and coats, right? And they are fundraising?
They aren't doing any fundraising now.
The rest is up to the parents' cost.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that, Sherilyn. Further questions, comments, Greg?
Yeah, and you were saying, Tammy, that the parents were going to foot the bill for that if they weren't able to get any funding?
If they were going to proceed, yes.
So,
If they were going to plan to proceed, then the parents would foot the bill.
so it comes down to more or less a percentage, right? How if they put in 50%, we could put in 50 or somewhere along that line. Would that Is that sort of what
Well,
you're looking at?
Well, I think if we do anything, like, depending on if we don't do the full amount, I think that's where then the remaining balance can be worked out with the parent. Yeah,
And then percentage could be determined by.
that by the council. Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Greg. I see a number of hands being raised. Over to you, Hazel, and then Sherilyn and Helen. Hazel, you have the floor.
Then the parents would hear the ballots.
That's a pretty good amount. I was going to suggest that as well. Now, for that, are you making that a motion? Okay, it's moved by Hazel to contribute $5,000, and seconded by Sherilyn. Further questions or comments? Sorry, Sherilyn, does that complete? Okay, so that does complete Sherilyn's comment or question. Over to you, then Helen. I'll need your mic on, Helen.
I think it's a great idea that they want to do jackets and rings. But I think we have to remember we have a lot of championship teams in our community. This isn't the only team that's won the championship, so I don't know how we would approach that in terms of if other teams want jackets too. I mean, we have to look at that as well.
Definitely. So, and I do, I know we just had this conversation, you know, once we help one, we got to help all. So I think that's something that the council should be aware of as well. And again, we just are going to be bringing back full support of all of our athletes, the NAG. So I think it's you know, doing our best to contribute where we best can. And everyone, fairness really is the key. Wayne.
Yeah, good morning, Chief. Thank you. Yes, and once again, I'll just request that.
Oh, sorry, Wayne, we can't hear your audio for some reason.
Really?
Sorry, try again, Wayne.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, just for clarification, if I can request that we identify the funds as OFNLP sports team funding.
Sure. Thank you for that, Wayne. So that's sources identified to be added to the motion, if that's okay with the mover and seconder. Yes. Okay, thank you, Hazel and Sherilyn. Are there any further questions or comments to the motion? Yeah. Okay, seeing or hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Motion to waive second reading. Moved by Hazel, seconded by Sherilyn. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Okay, council, that does complete our agenda for general finance. I'll look at this point in time for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Sherilyn, seconded by Hazel to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing or hearing none, motion is carried. Yawa, everyone, for joining us on general finance. All right. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
You have a 5-minute break, Mark?